Hey Bill, good morning. It's Marshall.
Hey, morning.
Hey, I'll ask one.
Sure.
So the last couple of weeks, either you or Iceman have been trading kind of like within a minute or two off the opening.
Yeah.
And I just wondered how you determined to do that versus waiting to see how the market's developing for the day.
Yeah, so that's pretty much if we're trading, on the open, the trades that I took, obviously we're losing trades, so they weren't winners, which is disappointing. But it's not usually in the ETFs for SPY or QQQ. It's usually in an individual name, right? So it's in an individual name, for example, like a Tesla. Where you have a determined price level that something is going to either hold or reject on a higher time frame. So, for example, let's just use Tesla, right? On a 1 hour, this is a pivot low. The next low on Tesla from an hour is all the way down here at, 394. So on an open, and you can't see it now because they've already broken through all the demand. But if you were to have looked at this morning, what you would have seen was there were a whole bunch of buyers sitting right here. Okay. All right here. Whoop. Why did it go away? There were a whole bunch of buyers sitting here, stacked up on top of one another. So on the market open, as you're pushing down to this level, okay, just like right here this morning, the market pushes right down to the level. You have to trust that there are enough buyers here at a 400 psychological level to get the push higher. And that's exactly what it did. And then what did it do? It actually rejected the 50% fib. Now we're breaking through. There are no more buyers here. They're gone. So this is where you could then flip to sellers. But this is, pretty much it's going to be at a key level on an open. Let's see if there was one on Nvidia at my price level. Same thing on Nvidia, right? With Nvidia coming down, and again, watching price action as it gets here, it's going to hit this very high level 207. And then what does it do? It bounces higher. So then that's kind of where you have to be able to read what is market momentum doing, directionally, where's the stock at? What is the supply and demand telling you? And then do you take the potential trade? Right? So now, clearly, we know with NVIDIA, let's go to a higher time frame on this thing. Clearly this thing is bearish. Now, if you want to take calls here, right, you can see for 5, 10, 15 minutes, they are not going to let it break below this 207.06. So this would be again on an open where we're going to push down heavy to the level. I can get into the call trade and then you stay in it unless you get a break below this 207.06. You are not getting a candle close below it. And you got to look at a higher time frame, right? You can't just use a 1 minute, excuse me, and then be like, oh, well, that didn't work. Because look at this. I mean, this is, technically bullish. So kind of flip to higher time frames. And when they're just closing just barely below the price level, what that usually is, a liquidity sweep, and they're just grabbing fuel to actually take this back up. So I would not be bearish on this stock until I got a at least 5 minute candle close below 207. Now, today's an anomaly, right? Because we're just going to probably chop around. There's just not enough momentum in one direction or the other. But right now on this, I would look for calls before I would look for puts. And if we were to go look at just let's do it, Nvidia, just take a look, NVDA, see what the call premiums are. Yeah, the 207.50s are reasonable. They're, 112 a piece. But this is right where I would be looking for a call trade, watching in Confluence with QQQ as well as ES, that what is the directional bias of the market? Well, look, they're getting back above my 4 hour price level or my 1 hour price level, right? So this is just drawing down and back up we go. So even with this, can't say that I necessarily like calls here, but when you're looking at the individual names, right, that's what I would be watching. So let's see what else we got going. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Appreciate the explanation.
Yeah. So now we got, they dumped Amazon. Amazon has some federal government lawsuits going after them. I don't exactly know what all the claims are, but billions of dollars in fines, FTC and the Attorney General, Amazon misleading investors. So that's where Amazon is selling off hard. So we'll get rid of that gap fill, and now you could just trade price levels in that one. So. Good question. So yeah, I mean, it's do we have a price level? Do we feel good about the conviction of the market, where it's at? And then usually it'll be on an individual name. It won't be on an ETF. But again, just really can't get any momentum one direction or the other in this thing right now. Other questions?
Hey Bill, this is Matt. This is
Hey.
kind of a broad question, but when you
Yeah.
just think overall of all the different setups that you might be looking for, each morning that you sit down, what are some of your favorites?
Ones that have a lot of volatility and a lot of volume. So NVIDIA, Tesla, QQQ. What I don't like, I mean, so my trading style, um, like I don't do well in Apple. I typically lose money every time I trade Apple. Right? Lose money when I tried to trade Meta. And the reason for it is my style of trading is I would prefer to trade a heavier position size and just be done with my trade within 1 to 2 minutes. Versus Alberto, his style is he would rather go with lower position size, right? And sit in a trade for, he's got patience of a saint, right? I mean, they should probably name a saint after him. He'll sit in a trade for 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 an hour, right? 2 hours. I'm like, I just don't have the patience for it. So with me, right, I want something that has a high enough volatility and enough price movement to know that I can get in and out of the trade and just be done within the first 60 minutes. My style doesn't want to sit around and babysit a trade or watch and see what could happen. And so, but I realize, right, my account size is different. So my typical tranches are 30, 50 or 100 contracts. And if you're trading a small account, that makes it so much more difficult. And I get that's why you guys also sometimes get frustrated with, well, I don't understand. Bill made 900 bucks and I made like $2. Like this sucks. And it has to do with, two things. One, my confidence level, and then two, my position size. So the reason I have Alberto trading live with you guys 2 times a week is so that you can see the different styles based upon the account size that you have, right? Because we're all going to be from a different risk management background. We all have different account position sizing, and therefore you have to find what that right balance is. But I mean, even with something like NVIDIA, this morning, I think definitely has potential. Now, this, right, you can see that they're constantly flirting with this line. When you see that this is happening, my advice is just stay away. Why? Because it could literally go in either direction on you. So, as you have a price level, two things. One, it's taking your price level and then trading that in confluence, right, with what is the rest of the sector doing. So, I know I gave this advice out the other day, right? You just can't trade NVIDIA in a vacuum. You should be trading NVIDIA in confluence with SMH, Intel, as well as AMD, because it's rare that they're going to buy just one of the five or one of the three, right? They're going to buy multiple. So if you want to trade the chip sector, um, you know, trade the entire sector. Now, when I told you before, NVIDIA, what did I say that call was at? 111 when we looked at it before, back down here. It's sitting at 110 right now. So in order for this to really become of value, we needed to get up here to 208. right? We need this to do something. But when you have buyers and sellers that are in agreement on price, and right now the buyers and sellers agree on price, they all think it should be somewhere around $207 a share. And as long as that belief is in play, the contract premiums just go back and forth, right? And you just get chopped one way or the other. So the best thing that I think you can do is look for a directional trend, right? Where you can get some momentum in one way or the other. But when things are just consolidating like this, and today's a bad example, right? It's FOMC morning. Nobody knows what Kevin Warsh is going to say. Is he going to be bullish? Is he going to be bearish? Right? Where's he going to come out with Fed policy? But clearly, we have a trend here more so in SPY than we do in QQQ, right? The tech stocks are kind of, stalling here. But right now, this looks like potentially a move back to the upside. Now, when I'm thinking about, okay, we're between essentially price levels, right? Because I got a gap fill down here and I got a price level up here. What do I want to do? Well, I got to figure out, potentially where are they going to reject this? So I'll watch between the 50 and the 618. Now, this is already going way beyond the 50 and the 618. I could tell by just looking at it, right? So this is strength. Okay, so if you were going to play calls, you would play calls here. If you were going to play puts, you would play puts here, right? Pick the stronger play for calls. Pick the weaker of the two to actually go and play the puts. So I know that was a mouthful to the question that you answered, but I'm looking to see in the market, like where what are people paying attention to, right? Because this is an auction. And in order for my price to move, I got to find something at the auction that is moving, right? Apple, right? Apple, right? They're paying attention. Looks like calls are looking good here. We talked about calls in Nvidia already. Um, Microsoft, nothing. Like there's nothing here. It's not doing anything. They're not really doing anything in, Google, and they're not doing anything in Meta, right? This could go either way. This could go either way. This to me looks bullish because at least they're holding this price level. Like they don't want to go below this. Here they're chasing liquidity to go up to this price level. So when you get up here, excuse me, up here, you got to make a decision. Are they going to reject it again? Or are they going to actually break through it and go to the upside? Now, for me, I would want to wait for us to get a candle close above this $300.75 to keep the continuation going up. And in the meantime, right, maybe I could have a put trade when we come back up here, but I want to watch overall market breadth. And then what are they doing also, at the same time with QQQ, right? Qs start to reject the top of the orb, or you're going to reject a level up here, right, at the top of a price level, then what's the likelihood that Apple's going to keep going through this? Not highly likely, right? So we're just constantly thinking about probabilities as to what are the overall market dynamics. And now here, right, we're now getting to the top of the orb for SPY. And if I wanted to look at, SPY puts here, I could, right? I don't want to take calls here. Let me load some SPY calls and just see where they're priced just for fun. SPY calls, I'd probably take the one out of the money, the 753s. But then if I'm going to take the puts, I'm probably going to take the 749s. So I'm going to go a little bit further out of the money with the puts than the calls. Why? Because we have a longer way that we could probably drop than we will probably go higher, right? And so if you're going to take the put trade, you could at least think that it's going to come back down to somewhere here in this middle of the zone, the 50. Okay. Versus calls, do we really think we're going to break above this and keep going all the way to the upside? So those puts were at the 749 puts were at 141. Okay. So now what you want to watch and see is, are they going to be able to stay below this orb? Okay. That's a pretty good selling wick on a 5 minute. We still have 2 minutes left, right? We're getting strength here, which is going to allow this to continue higher. So let's just wait and see what it does. Now, what you need is you need the weakness to set back in here so that what's strong will start to come lower.
So if I were to try to summarize that,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like, number one, you're looking for individual names that are getting a lot of attention.
Yes.
Number
Pre-market.
two, and
Yep.
then number two, you're finding a direction.
Yep.
And then I guess after that, it's kind of a combination of using price levels, fibs, and orb to try to find the right entry. And then
Exactly.
confluence with SPY and QQQ or ESNQ, whichever one you're looking at. Is that,
Exactly.
am I close on that?
Yeah, 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 yeah. You're
Okay.
spot on.
Okay.
Yeah, right. You're spot on. Okay. So they pushed up, right, to that 50 EMA. See what they do? Told you price was at 141. Price was at 141. Now we want to see it come up to this 786, reject this, and keep pushing lower. 141 is where price was. And then this is where you would have to keep, if you're going to get into the contracts, right? With a put contract, you have to keep your stop loss tight. Why now? Well, why? Because we're going against the trend, right? But again, if you're going to get into the put trade up here, you should be staying in it until you get this candle close back above this level. Just watching here. And I'm watching the futures data. So here's what I don't like, right? I think this is why a put trade's probably not going to work here. They're going to push this through the top of the orb. And the reason being, look here. We are now positive traction. We have switched almost positive that the 9 is above
Mhm.
the 21. Here, we're trying to do the same. So your better bet is going to be those most likely 753 calls if this thing squeezes and goes to the upside. And they tried it before, right? So look this morning. They tried to break up higher into supply. They go all the way down and grab this liquidity and bring it all the way back up here, right? So what most people are thinking is, okay, well, we're at the top of the orb. Let's play puts, play puts. But look at how they're holding this 786. Okay. So those contracts are at $1.50, the 753s, $1.50. See if they can break through this. And again, the longer they're holding at a level, the more likely that they want to try to break through the level, or the more times that they will try to go higher. Now, what you have to be cognizant of is that over time, if it sits here for too long, then the buyers just get exhausted. Okay. Now, again, this is a little bit harder because it's FOMC, but directionally, they're holding this to the upside, but it's going to be a quick scalp, right? And we get some momentum here in ES, volatility starting to slowly drop. But you need the explosion to happen, right? Because otherwise the contracts just chop. So let's see what they do here. Get above it. Go. They can break it, right? Volume's picking up on that 1 minute candle. Comes volume. They're really fighting that, aren't they? We're getting the move here, but this is where the strength should be.
So would you look for it to break and retest that orb before you took
Ideally,
the trade?
yeah. The higher risk trade is to take it right here in the consolidation phase, right? But if you don't get it and this rejects, this is going to come down. But just reading price action, right? You can tell the market wants to go higher. Look at the volume on this candle. If they break through it, they should break through it with some power. There goes ES. I'm sorry, NQ. Here comes ES. There we go. Okay. Go. Quite a few buyers coming in for the contracts. Okay. Now, here, we're potentially going to reject here on QQQ. This is where it gets a little dangerous, right? Because SPY's trying to break. Okay. Now we need this one to go with it. Okay. So those contracts were at 150. They're now at 159, and we are still going. So this is where you're not going to get the retest. Okay. I did buy the contracts at 150. We're at 167. So I'm going to move my stop up and trail it into profits. And I have my stop set at 158. The contracts are at now 172. Here they go. 173. I'm up about 230 bucks on the trade. I only went with 10 contracts. I went low position size. Now, here's where we're going to run into a challenge. Look here. You're now hitting supply. Okay. So this is where you got to be cognizant of your overall surroundings. Could they push it up? Maybe. But what are we doing over here? And it just stopped me out in profits. What they're doing here too is we're also getting into supply. They're going to target this level up here, this 4 hour. Now, if you couldn't get in or you decided not to get in because this was higher risk right around the consolidation, what we want to see is let's watch for, we don't have higher volume on either of these, but the higher risk is going to be, let's see. I wanted to retrace half this candle and see where the 50 fib is. Let's see. And again, it's a little more dangerous on an FOMC day, but we needed to pull back at least to 30,500 right in here in this golden zone. So I want to see this now. We got a nice bearish candle well above my price level. Look, they stalled here, stalled here, stalled here, stalled here. Now they're able to prove that they're able to push it up. I want it to come in here in order to follow through up here. And if it doesn't pull in here, guys, then I just don't take the trade, right? Let's watch.
So now you're using the fib to determine if you exit?
No, to get in, QQQ calls.
Oh, I thought you said you were already in.
I took I took profits up here
Oh,
as soon as
gotcha.
I hit
Sorry, I missed
this,
that.
right?
Okay.
So now I'm going to watch 739 calls in QQQ.
Okay.
740s. So why do I want to trade QQQ instead of SPY now? Why would I want to trade this now instead of this? It's not a trick question, I promise you. You're seeing it right on the chart. Does anybody see that I have a price level right here? It's my price level.
Okay.
Mm, I'm waiting. Just waiting.
Can I jump in with a question?
Just gonna wait another second, see if it holds these levels, right? All right, I tried one. One contract at 118. One contract at 118. It's higher risk, right? Because we're going back up into the supply, but clearly they're able to start to show that they're trying to hold this level. What I don't like is that the volume is dropping. We would want to see volume coming in and picking up on this. So 118 was the price. And now if we lose this, right, this is looking pretty bearish. I really need this 618 fib to hold, this golden zone to hold. I got in at 118. Contracts are at 114. So I'm down $4, right? And again, this was higher risk because we're trying to go into supply. And I want it to stay above this level. This blue line, I want it to stay above this. And keep the continuation. Got in at 118, they're at 121. But it's not moving, right? We want to see an instant reaction to keep this trend going. So this tells you that the sellers are very heavily present here, right? But there's no reason for me to get out of the trade. What I don't like is this volatility keeps going up. So that means this is going to come down. That means this is going to get drugged with it, right? So again, I'm break even. So this is a good example of a trade of, it's not doing exactly what I want it to do. I should probably just get out of it. Okay, I'm gonna wait another minute here. Yeah, this is where I would just most likely cut the trade and just say, no, this is not got enough momentum to keep going. Now, my 9 is above my 21, but the likelihood we're going to push lower. Contracts are now at 111, so now I'm down $7. I'm out. I just cut the trade. Okay, I'm not going to sit in this and run this risk. Why? Because price is now holding below my $30,509 level, right? Could it still go? Could still go. But on the way up, what was happening? Volume was dropping, right? So now we'll just wait and see what it does here. But this is part and parcel of the process, right? Is understanding, well, where are your buyers and where are your sellers? Again, we're trying to long into where the sellers are. It's like trying to take puts down here because you see this drop and you're like, oh yeah, let's go. I want to catch it down here, right? This is like trying to buy calls up here. I bought calls here. So I'm really mitigating my risk if the trade doesn't work in my favor. Does that make sense, guys? I mean, even if you just say, I'm never going to take puts in demand and I'm never going to take calls into supply, you'll do dramatically better if you just follow those rules, right? Let's see. Now we're going to approach VWAP here on QQQ, right? And now this is what I don't like. Look at the 9 and the 21 on these things. They're on top of one another. Like there is no trend of the market. So now what you're just trying to do is you're just trying to trade a directional bias on volatility. Probably back between the orbs here, if I had to guess. Yeah, exactly. Right? They're able to break above, so this was a good move up. Right? But when I'm going to take this call trade, you'll note that I'm taking one contract. I'm not taking 10 contracts like I did here. No continuation. And there it goes, back to the downside. And again, today's screwy, guys, because it's FOMC. But like I was saying here that I didn't like, why I would cut the trade, volatility was going up. Volatility is not coming down. It's going higher. You know, volatility is going to go up. Then guess what? The nervousness in the market is going to go with it. Now let this candle close. Let both of these 5-minute candle close and see what they do, right? It's pushing lower on lower volume, right? So now what I want to see is how do they react here? Just flipping the orbs. More weakness here than we have here. This is where we have strength. They're only hitting the 50 fib, right? They're starting to lose this 618. Yeah, Zach, but it doesn't look like they're not gonna bounce this. Look at how red this candle is. I mean, this just took out, these are 5-minute candles. This is one 5-minute candle, just took out 5, 10, 15 minutes of the market moving up, right? So look at the size of this, that it just wiped out 15 minutes of market move in less than 4 minutes. So this is where puts look good, right? The 749 puts to actually go through and break demand. Okay, let's see. I mean, this is a heavy red selling candle. They didn't break demand before, they got very close to it. Well, let's see what they do here. Let this candle close. I still think they're going to take this lower and break this demand to the downside, but we'll see. And right now we're just chopping. So we're getting strength here and we're getting weakness here. And again, on an FOMC day, guys, this is so hard to do, right? Because I just feel like we're guessing. Volatilities, trying to pick back up. They did not break this demand that they tried earlier. So I'd like to see if they can do that. Microsoft crossing the horizontal line. So they're selling Apple, they're selling Microsoft. I think it's going to break through to the downside, personally, but what do I know? Who knows? Let's see. Let's see what it does. Here we go. Push, keep going. If you can get past this 786 fib, it's going to go for that liquidity zone at the very bottom. And so what it's going to do is always going to go retrace where the market was previously, right? How do I know it's not grabbing liquidity? Look at the size of these 5-minute candles, you guys. They're huge, right? What did I just say? It wiped out 15 minutes of market growth in 4 minutes. Just read I'm sorry, I apologize. Just read the candles, okay? Just read the candles. Read the market breadth, right? Look at this. I got another screen to my left. Selling, 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 selling. I mean, like, why would I even think calls? And that's why you can't look at the market with just one lens and be like, oh, well, this is what I see on this chart, right? I have a fib. This should go. Okay, well, I believe this is going to break to the downside. Why? Because they did not bounce the golden zone. They tried. And then what did it do? It couldn't even get back above this 50. So this is where I would start the put trade to go lower for this to be a demand break. And let's just see if it breaks demand, right? And then what do I know here? They're selling Apple, right? If we can get below this level in Microsoft, this can go. If they can get below Nvidia, I mean, if they get below this level and this level, it's going to be lights out. Why? Because we're already below a level. We're already between levels. We're already between levels. I mean, gravity is doing its work. Gravity is pulling this down to liquidity, pulling it down to liquidity. Here it pulled it to liquidity and it's stuck. Here it pulled it to liquidity and it's stuck, right? And that's why once you get below a liquidity level and it breaks, it keeps falling. Okay. Okay, we're about to break below the orb on SPY. We're still above it in Qs. We have a gap fill here. Okay, so that's going to slow things down because the top of that gap will act as a potential bounce level. Why? Why does the top of the gap act as a bounce level? Because if you were to go back to a daily or a 4 hour, that's where a candle would have opened, creating a base to push the market open. FOMC, Federal Open Market Committee, which is where, depends on where you live, right? But here in the United States is where the new Fed governor, Kevin Warsh, is going to be talking about how he's going to run the Federal Reserve, right? Trump appoints the Federal Reserve chairman. He appointed Jerome Powell 7 years ago, right? Even though he thinks Biden appointed him, Trump did. And now, Powell's term expired. Powell is still on the Board of Governors, but he'll sit silent, right? He's just not going to step off until all the legal lawsuits are, off against him. And now Kevin Warsh is on board, and that's Trump's new Fed governor pick. And what the market wants to know is, are you going to be a puppet to the president and do what he wants to do? President wants lower rates unequivocally across the board, right? Just lower rates, lower rates, lower rates. And what the market wants to know, which is why you're going to get this jockeying back and forth, is to see what does he say? What is his narrative? What is his belief? And it'll be interesting. So, but don't get me wrong. Every president wants lower rates. Biden wants lower rates. Obama wanted lower rates. Reagan wanted lower rates. Carter wanted lower rates, right? Every president wants lower rates. Why do they want lower rates? Makes consumer borrowing easier, right? To fuel the economy. We are a consumption-based economy. So I'm not singling out that that's what Trump wants. He's just been the most vocal to say, this is what you need to do. And if you don't do it, then I will get rid of you. Now watch, we're going to break this demand. If this demand breaks, right? I told you I was bearish for this to break. This green box will disappear. This is a 2 hour demand box. So then if I want to take puts, I want to get below my price level of 75.77. Or what I want to be careful of here is they come down, they just get barely past this candle, right? Barely past this candle. They'll do what's called a liquidity sweep, and they will take it back up to high of day, or at least back up to retrace 50% of the fib. Let's see what they do here. We're getting close. They just beat it by probably a penny. There it goes, and it's gone. Told you. Now, you need to get below this level to take puts. The put trade was up here, okay? The put trade was right in here. Why is that not drawing? Come on. The put trade was here, okay? After we watch this 5-minute candle destroy this 5-minute candle, this 5-minute candle, and put a dent into this 5-minute candle. So you're looking for it to go back up, to come down. Now, we want puts, okay? We cannot take puts until we get this 5-minute candle close. It might be too late. It might be too long. But what we can't run the risk of is that you're seeing this is making a low of day. This has not made a low of day. This is going to try to hold this price level, and look at what this did. It's back above the price level. So as soon as you see it drop below the price level, you're thinking puts, 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 and you're jumping in puts, and then guess what you become? My liquidity, when I would have taken calls. Is starting to kind of resonate how all of this works together? Or no, not really. Give me some feedback, please. Nobody wants to be brave.
Yeah, I'll speak up again since I kind of started this long answer.
You're good.
Yeah, it's making sense. It's just, I mean, even my summary I gave earlier, I said you're looking at fibs for entry, orb. I've added to that volume, the 9 and 21 EMA. I mean, there's just so much to consider all at the same time. I think that's what I'm starting to wrap my head around, but it's just in that moment of taking a trade or not, I'm probably considering one or two things instead of the 8 to 10 that you're thinking about.
Yeah. So rule number one, always rule number one, look at the futures data. Is the nine above or below on an EMA perspective? The nine is below the 21. We're below the 50. We're below VWAP. Should I be looking for calls or puts if I'm going to trade with the trend?
Oh, sorry, I was on mute.
No. Should I be looking for
Uh,
calls or puts right now?
the nine's below the 21, so puts.
Yeah, exactly. Right? We should be waiting for the push up, right? Now, I know, right? I've been doing this longer, so I can feel comfortable with taking a call trade here. You should not. You should not. So when you see even Iceman going, okay, we're going all the way back up here. Let me get in. No, you ought to be just going with the. If you, I love you guys to death, and there's nothing more that I want than to see every one of you succeed beyond your own imagination. But if you will just trade with the trend and not trade against it, you will have an 80% win rate. I promise you. If you can just learn price levels and don't go against the ocean waves, you will not get taken out to sea. But that's what happens, right? You're trying to I'm trying to catch the top for the reversal. You saw up here what we did is right, we tried to take a call trade. Clearly that didn't work. Well, why did that not work? Well, we're going up into supply, heavy supply, right? So that's a problem. We should have been right. The nine, even here, the nine, when we were looking to take this trade, the nine was barely above the 21, but you're still below the 50. And what did it do? Round out and rolled over. Okay. Same thing. Up here, even the nine was the only thing that was above, the VWAP, the 21, everything. This was still starting to roll to the downside. So, rule number one, don't trade against the trend. Rule number two, don't take calls going into supply. Don't take puts going into demand. Now, you might be like, well, Bill, we did take puts because the demand break. Well, if you remember what you were seeing here, right, with demand, let's just put the box back. I don't know where it was, but let's just say that the box was here, okay? Hypothetically. Look left, guys. They came so close this morning at 7 o'clock on breaking the box, but they couldn't do it. So what did they do? They made a second attempt and then they actually accomplished the goal, right? So, really, while you're seeing this big green box, this box is really only this big. And so, therefore, that's why they came back and took a second shot at it. They broke it. And then, as soon as they broke it, that's when the market reversed. That's why I said I can't go and put down here until I get a 5 minute candle close below. Now, again, it's FOMC day, right? So they could reverse the market back to the upside, right? But this is where now let's do this. No, that ain't gonna work. They is the market makers. So, right, a put trade up here. Let it come, touch the 9 and the 21 to resume puts to the downside. Now, where would I get out of the trade? If we get a candle close above the 618. So what 749. Whoop. Look at that. That's news. Dude, something happened. Something happened. Back to Iran. Are we bombing them? Trump said something. I guarantee it. He's at the G7. See if I can figure out what it was. Yeah. Those are news candles. You don't get that kind of volume and volatility on a news candle where a contract goes from $1.80 to $400 in seconds. Now you can't do anything. You have to now just sit and wait and see what the hell was all that about. Look at volatility all the way up into the gap fill. Okay, so we're going to wait 5 minutes. We're going to see if we can close below both these levels. Yeah, if you catch one of these, I caught one 2 weeks ago, right? That's how I made $19,000 in a day, right? I mean, the contracts went from the contracts went from, $80 to $300 in 1 minute. But that's luck, guys, right? That's luck. That's not, that's, and I hate it when people, brag about shit like that because it was lucky. That's all it was. You were at the right place at the right time. If it's not, our goal is to be repeatable at what we do, right? Now look at this. It's trying to get back above these levels. Craziness. It's like fascinating, isn't it? All right, let's see if they can close both of these below these 4-hour price levels. Let's see. So this is where a higher risk trade would be just to jump into the 725 put for QQQ, okay? On the fact that they're going to now go for this demand level. Volatility is coming back up, right? You got the retest right here, okay? And again, this is all news, but this is where you would take a high risk trade right here. Contracts are at 147. Just seeing. Too much nonsense, right? This is where you're just gambling, guys, and trying to risk it. Let's see what they're doing in the individual names. Nothing much. But this news candle is what screwed up everything in the market. So you almost got to give it another 5 minutes to see what they do here. Market's still down, right? I would be biases to the downside. Yeah, right. Don't risk it for the biscuit, right? My bias is still down. It's not up. You want to see for confirmation this second 5 minute to stay below, but I don't know where we're going to get that. You're just getting this oscillation back and forth. Volume's still dropping. They're selling Microsoft, they're selling Apple, they're selling Meta, they're selling Amazon. The only thing they won't sell right now is Nvidia, which is intriguing, right? Nvidia will not go back below that level. A lot of volatility. Let's see what they're doing here. You're at VWAP, right? This is just, again, more market manipulation than anything. So that's why we don't trade FOMC days. See if Nvidia finally loses this level, right? That's really what the market needs to go lower. They need Nvidia to dump. Again, you're seeing green candles, right? So you're thinking calls, but 9 is below the 21. 9 is below the 21. You should be looking for a pop higher to get into puts to actually take it lower. But again, you're getting a lot of news flow today, so this one's a little bit messier. Just chopping back and forth. Now, if we close back above this level, but look at how the volume is still lower, right? They're pushing this up on lower volume. This is going to be the lowest 5-minute candle of the morning. So this is where you got to be careful, right? When you start to be like, all right, well, now I'm going to chase calls, they're pushing it up on significantly lighter volume. So I still like puts, personally. See if they stay below this VWAP. That news candle was really did a number, didn't it? Apple's really selling off. They just need Nvidia to go with it. What other questions, guys? So the market's just kind of oscillating now. It's already 8 o'clock, so it's now getting ready to watch for the Fed minutes more so than anything. See how Nvidia won't break that level? See what SpaceX is doing here. We're below 200. So 181, probably a good buy area to take a stab at this, to go long. People get so pissed at me when I make fun of when I write posts making fun of people for buying it up here at 218 or 225. But I'm like, well, the software alone tells me selling pressure, right? And there's not a lot of float out there. That's why this thing is all over the place, price wise, just becomes memification. See what they're doing here. Again, I still think we're going to go lower in this, right? I want to see them, right? This is where, again, puts to come all the way down here and break this overall demand. And you're probably just going to have to be a little bit more patient. So let's see what we can do on a 5-minute. If they're going to close, yeah, we got 2 minutes left, guys. So, right. But look at how these reverse fib levels work, right? Once they get below the 786, they can't even get back above it. Weakness. Again, 9 and 21. They're going down. And I know everybody's like, oh, but get big green candles. I want to get in the call trade. Well, everything's telling me bearish. Like I said, we need Nvidia to break the level. If Nvidia breaks the level, look, Microsoft broke the level nicely. That's why we're getting a good push. Apple, bearish. Google, bearish. Everything's bearish. All these tech stocks are bearish. I can't even say I should be buying calls in QQQ. What other questions can I answer for? Yeah, SpaceX is pulling liquidity from all these other stocks. Absolutely. I don't think people are putting new money to work in SpaceX. I think they're like, oh, I'm going to take some profits in Nvidia, take some profits in Micron, right? Take profits in Tesla, and I'm going to go, reallocate, right? Yeah, banks are up because they're expecting a rate hike. Yep. Yep. We talked about this in my weekly watch list. Yeah, look at SoFi. That thing took off. That was a winner. I mean, I told you, JP Morgan Chase, SoFi, I told you, right? That's what you should be looking to buy. Go long banks. Why long banks? Higher interest rates, steepening yield curve. Let's see, what's JPM doing? Broke above my level, right? Where's this heading to, guys? Back to where it came from. And then again, draw a fib if you're nervous, right? Draw a fib and just say, okay, well, where could it bounce, right? If the market grabs some liquidity from us, where is it bouncing? Potentially right here at the 50. But overall, I'm still bearish. I don't see us going back up here, right? I see us going lower. Let's watch it together. We want volatility to get back in this yellow box. A lot of volatility right now. It's a craziness. No volume though. That's what I don't like. Okay, we're back below the level on no volume, pushing up on no volume. That's what we had here, pushing up on no volume. We're below the levels, right? This is where you take your puts. Volatility is moving up. We really want to see volatility spike. And again, we're going to have more shenanigans today. Low volume. They're really selling Apple. They're really starting to sell Nvidia, but they're playing bullshit games with this QQQ. That's what I don't like. So it makes it so hard to trade this on FOMC days, right? You're like, everything's saying go down, go down, go down. Everything's red. They're selling Nvidia. It's now breaking down to 206 and they're trying to hold this. Volatility is going up, yet they're trying to hold it. Like it doesn't make any sense, right? It's going to break. Watch. And again, low volume. So they're going to play around with the price. And it's going to make it harder to trade options contracts. And then you're going to get wicked out. And then they're going to actually take the market, where they wanted it to go. But I'd still be bearish right here. Nvidia's still dropping. Meta's dropping. Apple's dropping. There's no reason this should be going up. Zero reason. So this is why we don't trade FOMC day, guys, right? The market manipulation is so high. I mean, look at this. Look at this heavy selling everywhere, except for a little bit of Microsoft, and they won't let this QQQ go lower on no volume. Look at this volume dropping, dropping. Yet they're trying to push it up. You need to keep this below. Volatility's into the gap fill. Volume's dropping as they're trying to push it up. That's why I don't think it's going to last. Heavy selling in Apple coming in. We're almost to a bounce level though, which is a problem. See if they can close it below the levels. Again, there's no reason it's not moving up on higher volume. It's moving up on lower volume. So what that does is it plays with, they're dumping Apple and Nvidia. I can't believe this is even holding here, you guys. This is like shocking. That's why that's why you can't trade FOMC days. I'm telling you. Other questions? Close below the level again. What else can I answer?
All right, one more from me, Bill.
Sure.
Do you spend most of your time watching price action on the 5 minute chart?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, that's what I'm noticing. That's a habit I need to get into.
Yeah. And then, right, and so then these are all on 5 minutes. Look at them dumping this, right? I mean, they're dumping Apple like nobody's business, and then they're holding QQQ. Like, this makes no sense to me. I mean, but they do not want this to go lower. And so this is where your premiums are just chopping, and you're like, what do I do? What do I do? Right? You're seeing I got into the trade, I'm losing money. I got into the trade and I'm losing money. My 9 is still below my 21. My volatility is going up. So this is why we don't trade FOMC days, right? It's such a great example because the market fuckery is at like an all-time high. And that's exactly what they're doing today, right? They're just blowing prop accounts left and right, stopping everybody out of their trade because premiums are just getting destroyed. So does that kind of make sense? All right, just lots of back and forth. No strength here. Volatility is still moving up, but they will not let this QQQ drop. But if it does, it's going to drop big time. And again, they can't get above really this orb, right? By now, the market should have already dumped. So, but again, on FOMC, guys, anything is possible in all honesty, right? So that's why I encourage you just don't even try to trade it because it's just you're fighting what's a good word for it? I mean just yeah. This is what happens on FOMC days, right? You just get so much market manipulation where what they're looking for is people go calls, go puts, go calls, go puts, go calls, go puts, right? And then all you do is you just destroy your account. And so you can't win. And so if you can't win, why do it, right? This everything's telling me the market should be going lower. Everything's telling me this should be dumping, and they just will not dump it. But I think when they do, it's going to go pretty good, in all honesty. See this? They got to go back down here. So the question is, will they do it and how long will it take? Premiums are at least stabilizing. And so that's part of the problem too. When you're too far out of the money, you get more people that don't have a conviction one way or the other. But now we got to get back below this golden. There we go. Now let's see some volatility pick up. Keep going. Told you the market didn't make sense, guys. You know, when you do this long enough, you start to be able to call bullshit. Like, but do you see how so many people would have already gotten shaken out by now? Because they just can't read the overall market breadth. This should go to low a day. See if they do. See if they take it all the way back down here into demand. Could be a very volatile push higher though, right here. Because they're getting back to the base. See? So again, don't trade FOMC days. There's no benefit to it, right? So, all right. Other questions? Yeah, very similar to OPEX days, right? And again, this market should have dumped once Microsoft broke the level, Nvidia broke the level, Apple was heavy selling, right? They're selling, I don't understand. They're selling all of this and QQQ is still holding up. That's what I call market manipulation, right? I still think it wants to go lower. The other thing you want to see too is your 9 right here, right? Coming back to the price level. Let's see. Part of the problem too, again, guys, has to do with the contracts that you're selecting. If you're too far out of the money, sometimes you got to come in a little bit closer. So when you're watching and you're like, oh, well, these are expensive. Well, they're more expensive for a reason versus if you're too far out, right? Let me see something. Negative traction down here, right? Quite a bit of it. We need Nvidia to start selling back off again. Apple's still going down, right? We want Nvidia to reject this 9, which is below the price level. Apple's doing good. Sell Microsoft, right? The recording, I'll post it. It takes about an hour or two to process. So when I get back from the gym. 15-minute candle looks like it's going to stay below my price level, right? It's what we want. We do not want to see this 1-minute candle back up here, guys. We want to see this drop. Nope. They're trying to push this higher. Lower volume. Thirty-six seconds. Yeah, we don't want to see this above this price level and see now how we're switching from selling pressure to buying pressure. So this is where you would have to tell yourself, okay, I probably need to get out of this trade because they're going to now use the 30,387 as support. But again, a lot of back and forth. They got to get back below this orb, right? Come on, what is this doing? All right, any other questions? If not, I'm going to call it because we've been at this for over an hour. So, again, harder on FOMC days, just because, again, look at this lower volume on this push higher, right? And so when you're reading the overall, right, broader market, you know, it was definitely very, very bearish. So, but go ahead, ask Ben.
My question is more in regards to losses.
Yeah.
I've been really bad about getting out of losing trades to the point that it's like, okay, it's down 20, 30, 50%. And then I'm often selling in like the 70 to percent, 80% loss range. So
Yeah.
it's totally out wiping my gains.
Yep.
I'm just trying to figure out like how do you get better at just taking the emotion out of it and just saying, that's a losing trade. Like what is the unequivocal hard rule for you?
So for me, it's obviously the charts. But I would just say if you're down 30% on a trade, the likelihood that it's going to go back in the direction you want it to go is not very good. So that's where I would say just say, all right, I'm getting out of this, right? I tried, I took the trade, thought it was going to do what I wanted it to do. It didn't. So therefore, I'm just going to go ahead and cut the loss and just be done with it. I think that's your best bet because once a trade is down 30, 40%, you need an exponential move to get the contracts to come back in your favor to get them to really do what you want them to do. And that is hard, right? I mean, you really need to be a lot of momentum shifting in your favor. So, I mean, rule of thumb is, or even if you're down, 20% and you're watching the charts and it's not doing what you want it to do, don't sit and wait for it, right? Just cut the trade. Here's the beauty of it, right? You can always get back into another trade. And if you're like, okay, like right now, let's say I want to take puts. And I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to take the put trade in, but this is too bullish. So I would not take puts, right? Nine is above the 21. Nine is above the 21. We obviously have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8-minute candles of just pure buying, right? They mitigated this huge drop. So we probably ought to be thinking about calls. So if I decide to get into the trade and I'm wrong, then the best thing is just cut it and just note that you can just always re-enter, right? I mean, that's the thing. You can always re-enter a trade. And, people forget about that. So,
That's really good advice. Just because I find myself really good at trailing stops on the winners, but I
Mhm.
don't set like a max loss or a stop loss on the losers. And
Yep.
I think that's definitely the emotional part, and it's wiping out major gains.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, a good example of it is this too, right here, right? They will not push it lower. 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 And then so you just get exhaustion, right? And then it's just like, all right, screw it. So then the Bears are like, ah, forget it. And then the Bulls take over, right? I mean, so it's constantly you keep retesting, retesting, retesting. And now everything again was telling me that they would push this lower. My bias was they would push this lower. But if they can't push it lower, it's not going to go, right? So you're like trying to force something that isn't meant to be. So part that comes down to reading price action, right? It's the same thing. It's the exact same thing, you know? But these are good questions, right? And let's see where they took this to. They didn't even get back up to this candlewick high, but
It's a really good call because last week for me was really tough because
Mhm.
over 5 6 weeks of gains basically wiped out in 1 week over 4 to 5 trades, and it's just
Well, and so that comes back to Ben though, but what was your position sizing, right? Were you oversizing on a percentage basis for the size of account you have, right? So go back to the 10% rule. Go back to, okay, I'm not going to take more than 3 trades in a given day. Once I hit my loss limit of X dollars, I know that I'm just going to stop, right? But usually the problem is we don't stop. We're just like, okay, well, I'm going to get the next one. I'm going to get the next one, or I'm going to be right on the next one. And so it's always one more trade, just one more trade. And before you know it, there goes, 500, 600, 800, $1,000, right? In a matter of minutes. And that's what we really want to try to stay away from, is saying, okay, I'm only going to take this many trades in a day. This is the only amount of risk that I'm going to put on. And that's it, right? It's just going back to those rules more so than anything.
so having a max loss roll for your day is probably a
Yep.
good bet.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, I
Yeah.
have a max loss of two trades, and then I'm done
Hmm.
for the day, and then I just have to reassess. But having a max loss dollar amount might actually be good. I try not to look at the P&L, but if I have to, so be it.
Well, I think you have to figure out, okay, what does make sense, right? And am I even willing to risk one more trade beyond where I'm already at, right? Because the goal is to keep profiting. It's not to lose money, right? I mean, so you have to have a sometimes a bigger set of parameters that you're really going to, take into consideration. So. Now the market's just kind of choppy, waiting for this FOMC. So, right, this is where I say, don't do anything, guys. Just stop.
I
Right?
appreciate your answer because I feel I'm reading the comments. So it looks like several other people have the same sentiment. It's just like they don't know when to get out because the emotional part kind of takes over. But I think what I'm
Sure.
hearing, if I have to summarize, is like, set a max loss, whether it's a percentage amount or a dollar amount. And two, like if you've made whether it's one bad trade, two bad trades, or a certain dollar amount, just reassess, take the day off, get back to the drawing board, and just
Exactly. Exactly. Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Just reset. Reset.
okay.
Yeah.
Totally fair.
Yeah,
Love
good
it.
questions. Okay, guys. I'll get this posted and we'll go from there. How does that sound?
Thanks, Bill. Thanks.
All right. All right, guys. Have a fantastic day and we'll see you all soon.